Hello students. So next we shall consider the photosynthesis mechanism. So photosynthesis is divided into two main steps, the light reaction and the dark reaction. So light reaction, it is the reaction that depends on sunlight. Now where this light reaction takes place? So light reaction, it occurs in the grana of chloroplast. What are these grana? So grana are the stacks of thylakoids which are present in the stroma of chloroplast. Right? So in the thylakoid, light reaction takes place. Light reaction was discovered by Robert Hill. That's why it is also called Hill reaction. So what are the main steps that are involved in light reaction? So one is the activation of chlorophyll, which is involved here. The next, the photolysis of water. And what is the third step? So after photolysis of water, the third step that is involved here, it is electron transport and photophosphorylation. So these are the steps involved in the light reaction. So what is this photophosphorylation? So photophosphorylation is the reaction that occurs in the sunlight. Now here in this reaction, inorganic phosphate is added, right? So addition of inorganic phosphate to the reaction which occurs in the presence of sunlight, it is called photophosphorylation, right? So photophosphorylation, it is classified as non-cyclic photophosphorylation and cyclic photophosphorylation. So non-cyclic photophosphorylation, right, it normally occurs in plants. So all plants, they exhibit non-cyclic photophosphorylation, whereas cyclic photophosphorylation, it occurs under certain conditions. But usually non-cyclic photophosphorylation occurs in almost all plants. Now, what is the main purpose of photophosphorylation? Why photophosphorylation occurs in plants? So here this reaction occurs in plants mainly to synthesize ATP, right? So ATP synthesis or synthesis of energy, right? Energy is produced in the form of ATP during phosphorylation, right? And what is the use of this ATP produced during phosphorylation? So this energy, that is ATP, is used in the dark reaction. So ATP produced in light reaction is used in dark reaction to produce carbohydrates, right? See here, in the light reaction of photosynthesis, oxygen is produced, right? So oxygen evolved by photosynthesis. It is mainly from the light reaction, right? And evolution of oxygen, it requires water, or we can say oxygen is evolved mainly by using water, right? In the dark reaction of photosynthesis, carbohydrates like glucose is produced. So these carbohydrates are produced by using carbon from carbon dioxide. Fine. So I hope you remember the general reaction of photosynthesis. Right? What is the general reaction of photosynthesis? 6CO2 and 12H2O in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, they form glucose with the liberation of oxygen. Right? So here So this is the general reaction of photosynthesis. 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O in the presence of sunlight and with the help of chlorophyll. Glucose is produced, right? One molecule of glucose is produced. 6 H2O and 6 O2. This oxygen is produced during light reaction, whereas carbohydrates like glucose, they are produced in dark reaction. So the two important raw materials, CO2 and H2O, this is used to produce oxygen, this is used to produce glucose, right? So this is how photosynthesis is divided into light and dark reactions, right? So in light reaction, the main part is the non-cyclic photophosphorylation, right? So non-cyclic and cyclic photophosphorylations take place during light reaction of photosynthesis and ATP is produced. Along with that, oxygen is liberated. So first we will consider the non-cyclic photophosphorylation, right? Now this photophosphorylation, it is called non-cyclic because, see here, electron transfer takes place. Electrons are transferred during this process. These electrons, they are transported by electron carriers, right? Electrons are transported by electron carriers, and these electrons, when they are cycled with the help of electron carriers, they don't come back to the starting point, right? So electrons are not cycled back to the starting point, that is photosystem 2. That's why it is called non-cyclic photophosphorylation, right? Because electrons are not cycled back, so it is called non-cyclic. Photophosphorylation, now you know the meaning of photophosphorylation. Phosphorylation, right? Phosphorylation is the addition of inorganic phosphate to the reaction to produce ATP. When this reaction takes place in the presence of sunlight, then it is called photophosphorylation. So we shall consider the non-cyclic photophosphorylation, which is also called Z scheme of light reaction. It is also called the Z scheme of light reaction. It is called Z scheme because, see here, it looks like a Z, right? That's why it is called Z scheme of light reaction. Now, what are the important events that occur during non-cyclic photophosphorylation? So, first important event is the photolysis of water. Right? Photolysis of water is an important event during non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Then there is electron transport through electron carriers. Right? So electrons are transported through a chain of electron carriers. That is the second step, or you can say second event in this process. And the third event is the synthesis of ATP or formation of ATP and NADPH molecule, right? So these are the important events that occur during non-cyclic photophosphorylation. So one is the photolysis of water, second one electron transport through electron carriers, and finally the last one, right? That is the formation of ATP and NADPH, which are energy-rich compounds which are used in the dark reaction of photosynthesis. So we shall consider this non-cyclic photophosphorylation here. So this is the starting point of this process. Now this process, it involves both photosystems, right? Photosystem 2 and photosystem 1, or we can say it involves both photosystem 1 and photosystem 2, right? Now what is this photosystem? Photosystem, it is the pigment protein complex present in the thylakoid or thylakoid membrane, right? It is called photosystem, which is classified as photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. Photosystem 1, it is located on the outer surface of thylakoid membrane. Photosystem 2, it is located on the inner surface of thylakoid membrane. Here the reaction center is P700. Here the reaction center is P680, right? Then it has both photosystems, they have light harvesting complex. So here it is light harvesting complex 1, here light harvesting complex 2. Photolysis of water doesn't take place here in photosystem 1, whereas in photosystem 2 there is photolysis of water. Photosystem 1 is involved in both non-cyclic and cyclic photophosphorylations, right? It is involved in both cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylations, right? So you can see this photosystem 1, it is involved in non-cyclic, even it is involved in cyclic also, that we shall consider in the coming video. Photosystem 2 is involved only in non-cyclic photophosphorylation. You don't see photosystem 2 in cyclic photophosphorylation. So photosystem 2 is involved only in non-cyclic photophosphorylation, right? Now this photosystem 2, which is having chlorophyll pigment, when it receives the sunlight and when it receives the electrons, right, electrons produced during photolysis of water, it becomes excited, right? So photosystem 2 becomes excited when it receives the sunlight and electrons, and it jumps to the excited state, donates the electron to the acceptor, that is electron acceptor, which is a electron carrier, right? So this is the reaction which provides electrons to the photosystem 2. Even this is the reaction that supplies protons or hydrogen atoms, right? Here. So that we shall consider after some time. So this reaction which occurs in photosystem 2, it is called photolysis of water. So this is the reaction which indicates photolysis of water. So water molecules are photooxidized in the presence of sunlight to produce protons, electrons and a molecule of oxygen. So this is the oxygen that is evolved here during photosynthesis. So oxygen evolved during photosynthesis, it comes from here actually, right? So this is the product of photolysis of this water. So this water, it is photooxidized to produce this oxygen, and that reaction is here, which is during non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Understood this? Now these electrons, they are transported here. This sunlight activates. Now this pigment, right, chlorophyll pigment, it becomes excited. It donates the electron to the electron acceptor or electron carrier. Now there are different electron carriers, right? There are different electron carriers. I will give you some examples of electron carriers. So I will write it here. So pheophytin is one electron carrier. Another one is plastoquinone. Plastocyanin. So these are few examples of electron carriers which are involved in carrying the electrons, right, from one photosystem to another photosystem. So we have not shown the electron carriers here, right? So electron carriers, they are represented here in the system that is called the electron transport system. So when electrons are passed through this ETS, electron transport system, there is synthesis of ATP, right? So this reaction where inorganic phosphate, that is Pi, combines with ADP to produce ATP, it is called phosphorylation, which occurs in the presence of sunlight. That's why it is called photophosphorylation. Right? So here one ATP is produced. Now, electrons from photosystem 2 are transported through electron carriers to the photosystem 1. So photosystem 1 receives the electrons, it receives the sunlight, right? Pigment becomes excited, it jumps to the excited state, donates the electron to the electron acceptor or electron carrier. Right? Now this electron acceptor or electron carrier, it accepts the electron, right? It receives the electron from the pigment. That's why it is called acceptor. Now this electron acceptor donates the electron, right? It passes the electron here, right? So this reaction, right? This reaction receives the electron from the electron carriers. Now, the protons which are produced here, right? The protons which are produced here, the protons which are produced here during photolysis of water, these protons, they reduce NADP into NADPH. So this is the reduced form of NADP. So this is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. The reduced form is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate hydrogenase. So this is the reduced form of NADP, and this reduction is with the help of these hydrogen atoms or protons, right? So this and this ATP and NADPH, they are the energy-rich compounds, right, which are the sources of energy, and this energy is used in the synthesis of glucose or starch or food, right, during photosynthesis. And that synthesis of carbohydrates or food requires energy, and that energy comes from ATP and NADPH, which are produced during non-cyclic photophosphorylation, right? So that is about the non-cyclic photophosphorylation. So you may expect a 5-mark question. Write the Z scheme of light reaction of photosynthesis. That time you have to write this Z scheme or give schematic representation of non-cyclic photophosphorylation. So that time you have to write this, right? So whatever question you receive in the exam, right, whatever question you get in the exam on non-cyclic photophosphorylation or Z scheme, you have to write this, and in brief you have to explain this, right? So electrons from photosystem 2 through electron carriers, they are passed to photosystem 1. From photosystem 1, these electrons to electron carriers, they come up to this point where NADP is reduced to NADPH. Now from here, electrons don't come back to photosystem 2. Electrons don't come back to the starting point. They end here. they don't come back, right? That's why it is called non-cyclic, means electrons are not cycled back to photosystem 2. So it is called non-cyclic photophosphorylation. So understood why it is called non-cyclic? Understood why it is called photophosphorylation? So mainly because of this reaction, it is called photophosphorylation, right? So I hope you have understood this Z scheme of light reaction. So with this, I will stop here and we shall continue in the next video. Thank you.